Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so honored to be in community with you today for our 5th annual community conversations. My name is Stephanie. My pronouns are she and her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ria, and I use she and her pronouns as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna, and I use they or she pronouns.
So we are some of the team at the UPRISE Collective. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We operate mostly in the Portland area, but to center and uplift our sick and disabled community members, we do lots of online content that is available everywhere. Our purpose is to support and uplift targeted communities, their intersections, sometimes their pain, but often their survivance, their resistance. Our work with community conversations is about thinking through this year all of the legislative decisions that have been coming down from the Supreme Court, from state entities and legislatures that are aligned with white supremacy, that are harming communities of Black and Brown, of queer, sick, disabled people and children. We had a conversation earlier in the series about tribal sovereignty, water rights, legislative genocide, and what that looks like in Native and Indigenous communities. This conversation is about Black communities, Black children, Black survival. We're talking about rollbacks on affirmative action. We're talking about attacks on what people term as critical race theory in schools. We know that it's not actual critical race theory, but we'll get into that. Anti-Black education policies, the deepening of whitewashing in our children's schools. And this is an opportunity for us to just engage together, the things that are living and breathing in our bodies around these issues, the work that's happening in community around these issues, and how we continue to build coalition and to support one another as Black and Brown folks to contribute to our collective survival, that thing that we know how to do, always and forever. We are thrilled to have our panelists in the space to have this conversation that we are here to witness. Kyoshi Owens joins us from Empress Rules Equity Consulting. Josh Lebatkin is a attorney in St. Louis County. And Aiden Campbell is joining us from 12-6 Strategies, Inc. And they'll get a chance to talk a little bit about their work and their positionality in the context of this conversation. But first, offering a little bit of container building for the space before we get started. First, we do have ASL and we do have captioning enabled. So much appreciation to our interpreters today who are supporting the access needs of our community members. The UPRISE Collective really believes very deeply in making sure that these spaces are accessible, and you help us to make that a possibility. Offering a land and labor acknowledgement, not as performance or rote, but as an acknowledgement that the systems and institutions that contribute to these policies we're going to discuss today are a direct descendant of stolen land and stolen labor. So calling into the space the communities that have continued to do the unending work of resisting colonization, the communities who are still here, being stewards of our land and our communities, thinking about our ancestral wisdom and knowledge, calling into the space that we are ancestors in the making, and making sure that we continue to build spaces where our children can feel affirmed in who they are. Community conversations, this is an opportunity for us to just engage together. This is not necessarily like panels that you've seen where kind of one person goes and another person goes and another person goes. Really what we're trying to do is engage together in conversation and build community around all of the different ways to plug into this work. So thank you for witnessing this beautiful experience of community conversation. We do want to offer some community agreements for both our conversationalists and for those of you who are with us today, just to make sure that we are upholding everyone's personhood and right to exist as we have this conversation. So what we're hoping And we're going to put these into the chat so that everyone can see them. And maybe Brianna can help me do that. I'm going to offer some community agreements just to help underpin our conversations today. The first one is you are the author of your own story. That how you engage with these issues, how you engage with what it means to be Black in the context of this country, or maybe a parent, is yours. That story is yours. And we're going to uphold and center that today. And the one time you might find us gently redirecting you is if maybe you interrupt someone else's personhood or right to exist. Other than that, all you. Take space, make space, making sure that we all have space in the conversation. Some of us are verbal processors, and just making sure that we're leaving space for everyone to contribute verbally that wants to. That being said, if you're a person who's more of an internal processor, however you want to show up in this conversation, you are correct, right? But if someone's trying to get in verbally, a little bit like double dutch, right? Like, we're going to let that happen. We're going to stay in our lanes. So let's speak about our own communities, our own identities. If we find ourselves speaking on a behalf of a community that we don't belong to, then we'll gently redirect that. Intent and impact is another one we all know. Intent is really important when we're in relationship with one another, but never more important than the impact our words and actions have on our community members. So that's something we'll hold to. And then finally, moving forward with the understanding that liberation and healing are possible, that nothing has ever changed in the history of the world unless someone believed that it could. And if there's anything that our communities know how to do, it's to move all of us closer to a liberatory space, particularly the spaces we try to create for our children. So panelists, do those feel like okay community agreements? Okay. Thank you for that. Attendees, welcome to the taping. Thank you for being here. Stick around afterwards. We're going to have a little raffle, and we have some books that we would love to gift you for being at this taping today. So at this point, I'm going to kind of remove myself as central to this conversation, and I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. Whatever you want to bring into the space, but name, pronouns, maybe your cultural context, your community roles, anything else that's kind of coming up for you. Speaking of double dutch, when do I get in? When do I get in? Let's start with Kiyoshi.
This is me trying to step back, Stephanie. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to step back, and y'all keep pulling me in. You see what I'm saying? My name is Kiyoshi Owens. I'm the CEO of Empress Rules Equity Consulting. I'm having fun with my identity more recently because I've always like centered race, and then I started exploring like what else is there, right? So we're beyond that, right? So what else? So part of my identity, I am of the African diaspora by way of predominantly of Nigeria. I'm also Iberian by way of Portuguese and Spaniard, Finnish and South Asian. I could go a little deeper because I did my African ancestry, but it feels really good to actually be able to say that. I wasn't able to say that before. So I don't really even identify as Black, but if somebody's like, are you Black? I'm like, yeah, I'm Black. You know what I'm saying? But now that I actually can know where I come from, I don't have to stick to that anymore. So that's something I'm excited about. I'm also a tennis fanatic. I love tennis. I went to the US Open. I saw Serena last year. I got pictures with Taylor Townsend. I was on ESPN. I'm living my best life. But I'm also the CEO of Empress Rules Equity Consulting. We do strategic, anti-racist centered strategic planning, community engagement, executive coaching, and workshops. Our goal is to create inclusive environments. I've had that since 2017. I love being in community with people and watching people grow. It's like one of my favorite things across the entire spectrum of folks who want to participate in liberation. Yeah, and with that, I will pass it to Josh.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Lebatkin. He, him, I guess ethnicity wise, Black and Jewish. Born and raised Massachusetts, been in St. Louis for 20 something years, and 21 years now. I'm an attorney, so I currently am a prosecutor in the St. Louis County office. Before that, I've been a defense attorney. I've been a prosecutor in the St. Louis City office. Currently, I work on felony cases, but I also work in our diversion unit, which is where we take cases, we review cases to avoid the normal path of the criminal justice system. So we look at people as a case as opposed to individuals as opposed to a case file. And we see what the root cause of the issues are, to why they may or may not have committed the acts they're accused of doing, connect them with resources and give them more options and opportunities to replace the actions that they've been doing. And if they participate in our program, complete all the requirements, we dismiss the case so that they don't have a felony on their case, on their history. And hopefully we've set them on a path towards giving them a better option. So theoretically, by the end of our programs, they're in a better place economically, socially, developmentally than they were before. Other than that, I volunteer in the community a lot through my fraternity, and just happy to be here. Oh, and I'll throw it to Eden.
Hey everybody, my name is Iden Campbell, and I'm a native New Yorker, Brooklyn, to be exact. I moved to the Pacific Northwest in 2019, a couple of months right before COVID. So all of my socialization has been through Zooms, professional and social. So I'm glad that we're still doing Zoom and also doing a lot of in-person things as well. But my professional background, I'm a community organizer. I started out with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but I moved over to mental health and addictions. And now most of my work is focused on suicide prevention in the Black and Indigenous communities specifically, because those are the two communities that I come from. I'm a person that's descended from African slaves and also First People here in America. So I focus on those two communities because like our conversation today, we're going to be talking about, Blackness in America, and most of the systems that have been created in this country were created to keep Black and Indigenous people oppressed. And so my suicide prevention work focuses and hones in on how those systems make us want to die and not survive in this world. So my focus is to keep us alive and thrive.
Attendees, are you excited? I'm excited. Thank you so much. I'm sitting in a place of such gratitude that you would spend your time with us today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Ria, who's gonna go ahead and kick us off with a grounding question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited for our conversation today. Just acknowledging that we're not experts in all the things, and we don't have to have all the answers. We know this, but we're still going to have a great conversation. Yeah. The first grounding question I want to propose to y'all is, what does engaging in policy advocacy mean to you on stolen land built with stolen labor? What does it mean to your community? And how do you see it show up in your community? And I'll put it in the chat as well, so you don't have to remember all of that. It's a meaty question. What's coming up?
I'll take a stab at it first. So like I mentioned earlier about the systems that have been created in this country, they were created to continue to oppress Black and Indigenous people after slavery, after the Trail of Tears. And modern day has shown us that those systems are working just as they were created to work. So there's no sense in us trying to rebuild these systems. We have to tear these systems down completely. I don't know how to do that, but I'm here for however we can tear these systems down. Stolen labor, is still happening. We have people that are in prisons today that are being forced to work for 5 cents a day, $5 a week or whatever. We have people in California that are fighting fires, that are people that are incarcerated. So slavery has not ended for a lot of us. And I definitely believe that we can continue to fight that in many different ways, but we have to do it as a whole, regardless of whether we're Black, Indigenous, or Latinx. We have to do it as people of color, because systemic whiteness is what's holding us back.
I'll go. I agree with everything Mr. Campbell said. I think bringing up the prison industrial complex is really important, because that was the next form of slavery post the end of the Civil War, and that still persists today, with whether they're being forced labor for well below cost, or the fact that the companies make money off the fact that they fill beds with Black and brown prisoners. That's a for-profit enterprise. As far as policy advocacy, I do find that to be incredibly important, because the systems are rigged against us. They've been set up to oppress people from the start, and to maintain power within a close rank of individuals, to maintain what basically is a third world organization. In order to do that, you have to advocate for policy to change the system, to make it more fair and just, not the ideals on which it was founded on, but to inherently change them from within.
Thank you. Thank you both. This was like a myriad of questions, actually. It was 3 questions. So I was like, I need to take time to think about like what you're actually asking, and think about, do I do these things? I think I try to do them through human beings, not policies. So I may not be, like you said, we're not the experts. I'm not an expert on policy change. I know how to be preventative, because I'm a problem solver and an innovator. But as far as people who that's their area of expertise, I work to get inside of their minds, to help them understand, because we can change policy all we want to, but somebody has to carry out those policies. And if the people don't believe in the policies that we're asking them to carry out, it doesn't matter. You could put any type of policy, they don't have to follow it because they don't believe in it. But if I can actually, through the work that I do, create opportunities and experiences for people to embody or imagine what their fellow human beings are going through, then that to me has been one of the most impactful ways, beyond anything else that I've seen, is like just them being in community and experiencing these things in life. The stolen land with stolen labor is actually a little bit too big for me to think about, because I can't, as an empathetic person, I acknowledge those things. I can't do both at the same time. I can't like do the work and also think about the grandioseness of those two things, because I just start crying, I have to just, like you mentioned earlier, stay in my own lane and just kind of be hyper-focused on what I'm good at and how I'm able to do that. What does this mean to our community, and how do you see it show up in my community? I think sometimes I see it show up through ignorance, because they're not even aware of these systems. And I was one of the people who was not aware as well. I was not aware about the insidiousness of racism. I thought it was like the Ku Klux Klan and people getting lynched and it was over. Like, that's what I thought, until I actually woke up to, oh no, the government actually like dropped a bomb on people who look like me. No, my government, I was a Hulkamaniac. I was a proud American before then, so to wake up from that to actually see, no, it never stopped. It's actually way sicker than I ever thought it was. A lot of people don't know that yet. And they think it's their fault that they're in the situation. And it doesn't mean that they don't have their own personal choices, but to actually look at what they were born into and how it was socially engineered. I go on, I'm gonna just stop there.
But I think that's why we asked that particular question, right? Because it is a huge question. But when we talk about policy work within specific communities, right? Like, we're negotiating with the state, and the state designed these systems in the first place. And like, what are the implications of advocating for change with the state? Right? Like that's a reality in policy work. And it's just, that's why that felt like a grounding question for this space, to say like, hey, let's just call this what it is. So thinking about, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say one more thing about policy. Oregon is a perfect state to talk about policy and how policy interacts with specifically communities of color historically, because we are always working to get better policies to come to our communities, right? Housing, addictions. And just in the last 3 years, there were so many policies that were passed, Measure 110, Addie's Act for Suicide Prevention, and you have all of these new programs for housing, basic income, those type of things. But in the big picture, when you're trying to work in a system that was meant to kill all of those people, those policies are only going to work to a certain extent, no matter how beautifully they're funded, and the people that they're reaching, they're still only going to reach a certain amount of people, and we're still going to be in this systemic system that is literally killing people that are disabled, homeless, with addictions. And so I think that we have to start looking beyond policies and start thinking about who we're actually putting into office, and how those people will better implement the policies. Because if we continue the system like the system that is in Portland, right, with the commissioners running agencies, the mayor being the police commissioner, whoever, right? Like, these people don't have the professional or lived experience to run any of those agencies. So they're continuing to create these barriers and these harmful methods that are hurting people, because you have people running them who should not be running them. So we have to start looking at how we can build a more equitable political system to get people into office like us right here on this panel, right? Instead of professional politicians.
I really appreciate you bringing that up, because what I hear is patriarchy, right? Patriarchy assumes that just because someone is put in a position or they have some type of degree, that they actually have the tools and skills capable to actually carry out the mission. And I'm really grateful that you brought that up. The other part that I deal with is when they finally say, okay, fine, we're gonna give you some money. Now operate. You've never had the opportunity. You've never created a charter. You never, you still have to navigate this system. You still got to turn in the reports. You still got to write the RFPs. You still have to do all these things. And who taught you how to do it? So it's like, here, and then if you fail, because they've had so much time to fail, and continue to fail, like, you know what I'm saying? But with us, and we don't get it while we're still trying to build infrastructure, they're like, it's been 3 years. How come you haven't saved the world already? And it's like, oh, we just got the charter done. I just learned Robert's rules. We just did some community building. I finally know Ria's name now when I see them. Like, there's no, they don't allow time. They don't build in the infrastructure to account for the fact that we have been historically excluded from opportunities to be able to just get right in and move on, And this is my daughter, Empress. You want to say hi? Say hi.
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 Beautiful. So I know when I was thinking about this conversation, I had a lot of really conflicting feelings coming up in my body when I think about things like affirmative action, when I think about things like the system of education as aligned with white supremacy and serving white interests in many ways, right? Like, and thinking about like the rolling back of affirmative action, the changes that are happening to curricula in several states, and just wondering about like what comes up for you when you think about everything that is going on. What does it mean to be a Black child in our education system right now, or a Black youth, or to have a Black child?
Well, my 5 are grown and they have their own kids now. So I see it in a different lens now, and that's through my grandbabies. And one in particular who is a lot like an old soul, and she loves people and loves taking care of people. She's trying to save her peers every day because the system is doing something every day to one of her classmates, her Black classmates in particular, that has these kids going home, depressed, experiencing anxiety attacks, and actually talking about self-harming. Especially one of her trans friends, right? Like, so being a Black child in today's school is so much more than it was when I was in school in the 80s. Like, we had each other. In the 80s, it was so different. The self-esteem that Black kids had in the 80s was on 1,000. And when I talk to a lot of kids today, their self-esteem is already beaten out of them by the time they hit high school, whereas we maintained it through adulthood. So it's very systemic, it's on purpose, and it maintains itself year after year after year. And it's such a perfect system that it doesn't even have to like have a human being recalibrate it. It recalibrates itself. And so that's what these kids are up against today, a system that not even their parents created, like their seventh grandparent created it, right? And like they're trying to figure out how to survive in a system that is literally like AI or the Matrix that can recalibrate itself. Imagine a human brain being up against something like that, and a young brain at that. It's hard to comprehend.
So when I look at this question, I mean, it's devastating. It's just I agree. This isn't new. This is the same thing. It's the erasing of identity. The same thing they did during slavery, erase any of our history with our ancestors, erase your name, take you away from any knowledge of self. And that's what's happening again. I mean, I thought it was bad, the uh, any educational, any history, any knowledge of Black history or even Africa in total growing up in the 80s, 90s. I thought it was bad then. Now this, I mean, this is to a whole nother level. It's not just not mentioning stuff, it's changing history. And that's always been a powerful tool for conquerors and oppressors. I mean, before our history books, they just took everything out because they had to, it was the Dawes Confederacy got the screening rights to essentially edit any books and take out anything that they wanted. So anything that acknowledged us as having a part of this history and building this country, or even Africa as a continent. You think back to the maps that we grew up looking at, they misshaped Africa into a much smaller continent and made Europe look massive. You know, you just changed enough where you change the identity of people and what they believe to be. You change the truth, and we're seeing that at the lowest levels, K through 12 now, and what they can teach. I mean, we've seen that on a grander scale, politically, where you have politicians who just change the history on the fly, and then people that believe it. So this is this is identity war. Like, it's kind of how I've been looking at it, where you're going to potentially have a group of kids, a generation of kids growing up without knowing anything about themselves. I know we're going to get into it, but Florida saying that slavery had positive benefits on Black people, and literally teaching that. And, you know, you tell your kids to, I don't have kids, but tell kids to pay attention, listen to your teachers and study. Well, if that's on the test, how do you tell your kid to study for that? I just think this is crazy, but it ties into a previous question. We allow, or not allow, when the wrong people are put in office to have essentially evil aspirations, or they're willing to do whatever it takes to gain power. And you have a guy like Governor DeSantis, who simply decided, this is my best way to gain votes, is to attack anything and everything that isn't white superiority. and he's enacting this, and it's tactful and it's been effective getting these measures passed. Sorry, I kind of ranted right there.
This is a safe space. Ranting is allowed.
When I think about this, I think it's really sad. It's really sad for them, you know, that is like the level of desperation that they feel like they need to go to do that. And, you know, for every action is the equal opposite reaction. I also think about chess when I think about this. Somebody used to play me and they used to always be so worried about my moves that they weren't focused on their offensive. And so I actually want to focus on our offensive. I would never trust the white folks to educate my child anyway. That's not their job. Like, it's really kind of like daycare. Well, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, they should be learning something, but the education, and that's acknowledging my own privilege to be able to teach my child and to have the level of education. But I'm the type of person where I actually want to have the conversation with Black people about how long are we going to keep asking people who don't want to play with us to play with us? If they don't want to play with us, why don't we take the energy instead of like pushing back against them and like putting it back into ourselves in our own community? Like, what are we doing to address that instead of looking at what they're doing? That's what I would like to do. And I'm thinking about what is my role in that. So like, I just went to parent teacher night. I like my daughter's teacher. He's a white guy. He's a queer white male, hecka cool. He's a great teacher. I like him a lot, you know, but I also want the kids to be able to go on activities and be cultured and bring this up. So I offer to pay for this stuff. Where are the people who have the privileges? We have privileged people in our communities. We're not all poor. You know, where are the ones who have the resources, and how are we bringing that back in? How are we mentoring? How are we, you know, inserting ourselves into schools and like volunteering and bringing the stuff that we want our kids to know into the schools? So I'm done looking at them. I'm tired of looking at them. I've been looking at them my whole life. I want to look at us. You know, I want to know what we're going to do. What's our personal responsibility to our own community, and to stop taking their stuff. It's their loss without us. That's, you know, that's their loss on their education. You know, but let's make sure that our kids that we're doing our part to make sure that our kids actually get the truth. What are we doing about that?
Yeah, Kiyoshi, that I love that. One of the things that happened when I was growing up in New York City, you know, back in the 80s and the late 70s, we still had a lot of Black Panthers that taught kids in the neighborhood, you know, gave us free breakfast and free lunch in the summertime. And that's something that is missing now. Like, we don't have the community that we used to have in the Black communities. When I was growing up in Marcy Projects, everybody in our building door stayed unlocked, and any kid in that building could go into any apartment in that building and feel safe, be fed, be spanked if they needed to be spanked or whatever. But you can't do that today because, unfortunately, our communities have become so unbroken that we're hurting each other internally with violence, domestic violence, drug usage, a lot of things that are just, you know, really hurting our people, and we're doing it to each other. And I think that if we could get back to community-oriented love like we had, you know, earlier, you know, decades ago, like, we could start rebuilding ourselves. We could start teaching our kids again about our history, because every Saturday I had to go to the library and bring home at least one book. There was not a Saturday that I sat in the house and watched cartoons, and that was that. If I didn't bring a book home, you know, I would have some explaining to do. So, like, we really need to get back to wanting to educate our kids ourselves at home, because yes, public education is nice, but it should have never ever been the end all, because it's a system that was created not to educate us. It didn't even want us in the system. Like, I'm 55. I'm literally the first generation of Black people that has supposedly lived my entire life free, being able to vote, go to whatever school I wanted to go to, live wherever I wanted to live. Like, but this is not freedom. Like, this is not freedom. I don't know what it was like for my parents or my grandparents living in segregation, living in the Jim Crow era, but the era that we're living in now is definitely not freedom. And I know that, like, my body, my DNA tells me that this is not freedom. So I can only imagine what our kids are feeling, not having the words to really express themselves, you know, going to school. Imagine being a Black kid sitting in school in Florida and your teacher tells you that Black people love being slaves. When you've heard from your parents and your grandparents about slavery and how slaves were beat and had their feet cut off if they tried to run away. So who's telling the truth here? This kid is like, who's telling the truth? I know my Nana is not lying to me, but my teacher is a teacher, right? Like, so we have to take back the education of our kids. We have to take it back.
And get off social media.
That idea of, again, that idea of not relying on negotiations with the system in order to adequately educate our youth and our communities, right, is so powerful. And I know as I'm thinking through this conversation and supporting as a moderator, again, all of those really complex feelings come up around things like affirmative action. Because as a policy corrective action, I have a really complicated relationship with affirmative action. And I'm wondering how you think about sort of the rolling back of affirmative action at the university level as just a function of the journey that these youth will take, right? Like, if we're interested in enrolling in institutions of higher education that give us access to, in some cases, wealth, that give us access to systems and penetrating bureaucracies, right? What is the tension between like wanting to give people the tools to be able to survive under late stage capitalism vis-a-vis wanting to give them the opportunity to survive as a person who is Black or brown? I know that's a heavy, heavy, heavy question, but it's just coming up for me. Affirmative action and like, how is that living in your body, those decisions and those news stories?
And I'm not like trying to take up space here. So Kiyoshi and Josh, let me know to be quiet. Affirmative action was never created for Black people. And that's something that we need to understand. I know it's late in the game, but we need to understand that affirmative action was never created for us. It was created for white women. White women have benefited the most from affirmative action in this country. Black women should have benefited from it the most, but unfortunately, they already had 3 strikes against them. 1, they were women, and 2, they were Black. So, like, this was never created for us, for Black people anyway. It has never really benefited Black people unless it was for mediocre, underpaying jobs. Professors becoming school teachers, going into the Fortune 500 companies. You still today, you don't see where affirmative action has been successful for Black women or for Black men. And that's not even throwing me into the mix as a Black two-spirited trans man. Like, we're not even gonna go there. We just talking Black men and women right now.
I think they think you nailed it. Josh, Kiyoshi, does anyone have anything to bring into the space?
Well, I just through my equity work, it really has caused me to look internally in my own family and the privileges as in the Black community. My grandparents were two very light-skinned people. And because of it, they got privileges. Like my grandfather had blue eyes. They both were property owners. All that stuff was privileges that put me closer and gave me a sense of knowing that there was something greater and that it was achievable in comparison to some other folks who didn't have that solid foundation. And those, so yes, in addition to white women number one for sure, but also the privileged Black folks. And it was tend to be lighter skinned Black folks who had access to affirmative action, and those who were already well off anyway and just needed a little extra push. So what I feel like is missing from affirmative action is value. Like when I look at Black and brown people, I work all the people who I work with, I taught them how to start their own business. I don't have any employees. I will not. I thought about it and I can't, because to me, it's still in the structure of slavery. So I don't have that. I've taught them how to be their own owners, and I've seen value, high value, in every single person that I've ever worked with. What makes me sad is that these institutions can't see that value. And so they feel like they have to allocate spots. No, they should, in my opinion, if Harvard and these quote unquote prestigious colleges really want to value us, they will come out to us and come look for us. Because that's what I do. I see value and I go look for that one Black person who lives in the coast of Oregon. I'm looking for them because we need that representation, and I value that representation. And so I don't think that this, screw affirmative action. This is really going to show us like what the hearts of men is really made out of. If they really want to, they really value us, they will come out like these recruits go and look for these athletes. They will come look at these clubs, these culturally specific clubs. They will come visit. They will make intentional actions to invite people to come or even scout, academics, high learners who maybe their school doesn't get as much attention or well known as some of these other schools. So I think it's really going to show us, like again, you have all the policies you want, but if they don't see the value in us, it don't matter if you have affirmative action or not. Because it's happening with the Latinx folks because they see value. And so the latest studies I saw done by the, I think it was a Wall Street Journal, I think it was that, the Latinx community is rising because they're out producing everyone, like as far as birth wise, they're growing at the fastest rate. So that's going to be the next generation to take over. And so that's where they find the value. Whereas Black folks, we returned to previous, we're still under what they were doing before. So we're not going up, we're actually going down while other races are going up.
I think the rolling back of it, while it definitely by no means perfect, wasn't designed for us. It takes away a little bit of like a step on the ladder, because it could be served to, it essentially forced higher education schools to take some people to look at us. Essentially, even though quotas were outlawed back in, I think it was 78, it's still, we all know that there were still quotas at schools. They weren't gonna all of a sudden take 200 of us when they took 10 before. So this is gonna show, and I agree with Kiyoshi, it's gonna show whether or not they want us or not. If you want us, we're here, but I think it's gonna, I think we know the answer to it. Like most of these schools are not gonna come and look for the best and brightest. They're gonna use this as an excuse to say like, well, we just took, they were equivalent, so we're gonna take the white one. And that's and I think you're gonna see a large number of the percentages on college campuses drop for minority students. I don't think this is gonna affect white women at all. Just like it benefited them, it's not gonna hurt them because they're still gonna get picked over us. I think you're gonna see a deep drop off in, frankly, I think Black women, as always, are gonna be affected the most. And then scholarship wise, they're going to be able to give scholarships away to other people so that you can make it a financial burden so that we can attend, with the justification that, well, we gave that money to someone of equal, or how we view whatever algorithm they use, equal or greater value. So a better applicant. And essentially there's no way we can check them, the system, because it's subjective, it's a subjective process, how you select someone to attend your school. So now, without being held accountable through any policy, we can be wiped off campuses where it could be few and far between. And you mentioned, athletes is could be separate, but most of these schools weren't even accepting us until, even the best schools were accepting us in the 50s. So it's not even that long that we've been accepted to go to these schools. Most schools, state schools, had a Black version of that school. They, obviously have less resources and everything. So I do think this is one step in their systematic approach to essentially maintain, not just maintain power, but grow their own power, while further putting their boot on our necks.
I'm reminded of the one, Josh Lebatkin and I, that would be my son. Josh Lebatkin and I went to the same undergraduate institution. I remember there was one scholarship for Black students that they were forced to open up to all students. And you were just putting me in mind of that moment where that one piece of funding that was available. You and I didn't get that scholarship, but it was there. But it puts me in mind of those conversations that you're having about, like, well, how do we support our youth? How do we build a system that aligns with who they are and what they need, right? How do we support spaces that help them feel affirmed in who they are instead of attacked in who they are, right? These are all very, very huge questions, right? So, like, what role will community building and coalition building have in building those spaces? What's it going to take?
I think it might have to take foregoing the lace weave and letting the knotless braids go. And the reason why I say this is that we have the money. We have money. We have money as the Black community. We have more money than a lot of different countries in the world, entire country. We're actually our own country. And if we just kind of took a step back on, let's just say we just left hair care products and we only stayed to like oil and juices and berries or whatever, just like the foundation. Do you know what we could do with that money? Like, if we invested that money into, I know I'm being funny, but I'm really being serious, because when I stopped smoking cigarettes, I saved so much money. I said, if you want to go on this trip, you could go on this trip. Stop smoking cigarettes. How are you able to get a pack of cigarettes every day, but you can't get your trip to Hawaii? How is that possible? And so I'm thinking, how can we directly invest our resources into our institutions so that they're perceived? Screw your institutions. We are dope. We are forgoing and not really thinking about how dope our teachers are. What do they know that we're not measuring because we're not the ones who are creating the test? Let's create our own test. That measures all these abilities that they don't have, like empathy and like kindness, like, that type of stuff, like other-centeredness, common sense, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and you're putting me in mind of just the function of education, right? Like, the function of education in the system that we have now is aligned with labor, right? Like, these rollbacks and policies that get us into school aligns with an agenda of white supremacy, right? Like, we are only worth as much as the labor we're able to produce. And the rollback of these policies are sending very clear messages about the type of labor we're allowed to engage in under late stage capitalism, right? So what does it mean to completely shift the function of education for our youth and extricate it from that idea of labor?
I have two thoughts, and they're kind of like just all over the place. But one is thinking about labor, right? And how the system wants Black people and also just poor and other marginalized communities to perform that labor. Think about the summer of 2001, when Governor Brown signed into law secretly saying that kids could leave high school with a certificate of completion. not a high school diploma, but a certificate of completion. And they also did that in Maryland a couple of years before. And I think a couple of states, other states have it too. But that is also to help create a generation of people that can perform this hard physical labor. Because Americans that have been here for generations, we don't want to perform it. They know that some new immigrants will perform it, but eventually a generation or two later, they're not going to want to perform it either. So you have to keep a class of citizens are always available to be able to perform in a certain way in society. And that's where these secret things come into play, you know, telling the kid, hey, you can leave high school with a certificate of completion, but not telling them that, oh, even McDonald's says you have to have a high school diploma now, right? So like being able to fight those type of things that are happening secretly in our government, but also thinking back to before desegregation happened. Black people in this country before desegregation, we had more intact families, we had more business owners, we had more people graduating from high school and college. Our health, we were not as sick as we are today as a whole. There were so many more positives to segregation for us than there was after desegregation. I'm completely with going back to segregation. I'm completely with going back to wherever we can go where there are other Black communities. My dad is from Jamaica. I will take my fat ass right back to Jamaica and be with other Black people to get away from this system that is systemically killing me, but also the chronic illnesses that we have as a group of people. It all came from this system. Every group of immigrants that come to this country, they come to this country whole and intact and very healthy, even healthier than native whites. Within the second generation, they are unhealthy. They're still healthier than native whites, but they're starting to become more unhealthy. The more we integrate into this system of whiteness, the sicker we get as people of color, as indigenous people, because this system was not built for us, period.
This made me think about, kind of brought up a couple of times, like everything's about money. So the rollbacks on education and keeping us out of those opportunities, kind of what was mentioned before, it creates you're creating manual labor class. So it's limiting us into what we can do, and like, you know, people are defined by their academic production. So if you create a worker class, this ties into, I mean, as far as schools, big donor alumni don't want to donate to a school that's having protests on their campus and active Black population that's socially active and socially aware. You whitenize that school, you cut down the population, so any Black organizations or minority organizations on campus are minimalized. It makes it a more applicable school for the alumni to feel, to donate to have control over. So they're not having to have those social, racial conversations. I mean, you see in all forms, I mean, businesses limit the amount of us that get in. Some years, probably like 6 years back, the Atlanta Hawks had new ownership and they did a study and they decided that people weren't going to their games because the atmosphere was too Black. Now, like, so they were suggesting white people aren't going to come to the games because there's too many Black people and they're playing too much rap and the teams are going back years. The idea was you couldn't have more than 2 or 3 Black people on the team because people wouldn't support that team. It's too Black. I mean, it's been throughout, like, representation. If we're going to be represented, the idea is to keep us at a very small quota in order to make it appetizing to whites. Too much of us is too much. Therefore, they have to change the system to limit us. And I think this is a direct result of Obama and policies. The idea, I mean, DeSantis ran everything on anti-wokeness. Since when is woke a bad thing? That was the idea of becoming more educated, being more aware of our history and our current climate. And he ran a whole thing to push us back in time to erase all that knowledge so we can go back to, yeah, just erase our knowledge.
Through all of
Imagine-
oh, go ahead.
Imagine having a Black president who in reality was raised by white grandparents and therefore raised culturally white. But imagine having that person become the president, and people that are so used to being in power become so disoriented that they will destroy everything that they built to wipe out the memory of that one person. That is the definition of mental illness, insanity. The picture in the dictionary, when it says mental illness, it shows a group picture of Congress and maybe Donald Trump on the side. But all to wipe out the memory of one person who just happened to be more intelligent than the last 40, what was Obama, 45, 44? The last 43 presidents. I'll argue with FDR about, because he was definitely a badass. But all of this, along with civil rights, the Voters' Rights Act, the Affirmative Rights Act, and the Abortions Rights Bill, right? Like all of this started from those things happening, people starting to work in the backgrounds to eventually one day be able to take back power. All of this, but Obama was like this lightning rod. When Obama happened, he sped the process up. The process sped up when he became president, because there was no way after Obama that we were ever going to also allow a woman to become president. Having a Black man diminished, like there was no way a woman would ever become president after Obama, because that was enough for white men. They were fed up after that. It was over. They would destroy everything that they have ever built before they would let a woman become president after a Black man. And that's sad if you think about it. The greed and the lust for power. I mean, look at Mitch McConnell.
I mean, what you said, I mean, the day after Obama won, McConnell had a press conference saying our #1 job is to make sure he's a one-term president. Meanwhile, we're in the middle of a giant recession. People can't find jobs or are losing their jobs. I completely agree with everything you said. And as a microcosm, no group in power ever gives up power freely. And even if it's 1% of the pie, they still won't give it up. And their reaction was so strong that we ended up with Trump. We ended up, priding ourselves on democracy, whether or not it's a true democracy. They're willing to burn that to the ground with voter suppression. I mean, it's very voter machines, like just changing the vote. I mean, that we overthrow governments in other countries because we say they didn't have a fair democratically elected process. Well, we have a number of people in Congress, in the legislature, who actively committed treason by definition and trying to overthrow a democratically elected government, yet they're still running the halls. I mean, no pun intended, but I'm in Missouri. Josh Hawley literally was running the halls after committing treason, and he's still probably going to win another term.
I think for me, thank you both for that. Getting having the ability to see like different communities like throughout the world and how they still have their problems. But I feel like for an example, my friend is Mexican and Indigenous, and she throws this big El Grito event, and she's invited me there to come sing the Black National Anthem, right? So I come, and it's packed with all these folks who are united under Mexico and America. And they're so proud and they're all together and they're working together and they have this thing. And I'm just like, wow, you know, above all, we're humans, but can we, like, when do we get to be Americans? Like, all of us. Like, don't you want your country to do good? Don't you want to, like, you know, like, don't you want your country to be healthy? We are all Americans. Like, why are you fighting against your own like country people? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I just wonder, like, what will it take for us to get grounded? Of course, we're going to have to do some reconciliation and some reparations and, you know, some real conversations and stuff. But what is it going to take for us to be grounded in being American, whatever that means, you know, for all of us, something that all of us can agree on and work together to heal from all, because all of us have been hurt. It don't matter what color you are, you know, all of us have been hurt from this, you know, and we continually hurt each other every day, you know. So I'm just wondering how can we get grounded in being American and want the best for our fellow human beings on a micro level, but then also humanity, right? Because if we continue to do this, we're all going to die because of global warming and pollution. And like, as organisms, we're just going to die while we over here fighting over skin color and trying to keep people out of institutions. You know, I work in energy. I see what's happening. I actually am educated about what's happening with our planet right now. And it's not sustainable. You know, so instead of focusing on what actually matters to us as human, like living organisms, we're fighting on over constructs.
Moving on with the theme of community and coalition building, what our children need, what our youth need, what our communities need. Do you see hope anywhere? Where do you see the hope? What's the hope in what you do?
I'm going to start us off real quick. What I love is that as a consultant, I get to say some things that employees may not feel comfortable saying. I get the opportunity to help wake people up and get them to question the systems that they're a part of, or even to see them. Sometimes they don't even see them because they're fish and they're thinking like, what water? What are you talking about? But also to be able to work through these systems to provide reparations. So like one of my clients, we are investing $200,000 into Black and Brown small businesses. And we are working to build our programs around them in energy efficiency. So that's what makes me happy. Also, you know, just thinking about what I can do in my agency within my power. I have my second youth intern from a program that I helped create through a policy change through Prosper Portland. They got some funds through, I think, POIC, and they have a workforce program. And so by, you know, me working with them led to this program, and I just got the 2 kids out of it. Like, that was really cool. So I'm on my second youth. They start on Monday, and they are a straight North Sider. If you're from Portland and you really from the North Side, you know what I'm talking about. And that's the kid that I wanted. This kid dropped out of school. He had his own gardening business, landscaping business. He's an artist. Like, he just turned 18 years old. That's who I want on my team. You know, that's who I want. I want to be that mentor to let them know that there's so much more, and I'm here for you. And then lastly, like, as a parent, being seen as a leader. So like going to schools, I do youth leadership camps. I bring my my planners that shows where I started before I started my business and how much revenue I made, to say, hey, listen, you've met somebody who's successful and you can do it. And I'm here and I'm creating these systems for you. So when you're ready, you have a place to go. So those are just a couple of things that I can do within my agency. And it does make me want to wake up, because I do see the changes. I see the logistical changes. I see the changes in the staff. I see the policy changes. I see the culture changes. So it does give me hope.
I get hope in work. I also get, disenchanted also, but hope I find is like helping people. So whether or not I'm in the criminal justice system. So like reviewing as many cases I can to get them into programs so that they don't go to some of the other people in my office who wouldn't blink an eye of offering them a bad probation or prison sentence without looking at the context of each individual. Like, all right, so for example, yesterday I got referred a case and I was reviewing, I was like, oh, absolutely. Like, this is a perfect candidate for diversion. I mean, she was working at a job. She stole like $1,200 worth of like makeup supplies from like Ulta or one of those. Like, okay, not cool. She didn't even get away with this stuff, and her friends ditched her. So it's like, I mean, she lost her job, so there's harm. There's not really too much harm though. But I read through the notes, and the attorney who was assigned to was offering her with a 5 year suspended execution sentence for a period of 5 years. So basically, 5 years of prison, but and suspend that sentence and do 5 years of probation. But if she messes up in that 5 years, she does 5 years of prison. And there's no telling how many people make those kind of offers exactly for some makeup. I mean, it was $1,200, so technically it's a felony amount, but this person doesn't need and that's a conviction. So now she has to report that every time she applies for a job. Now her ceiling is lowered, goes back to economic. Like, she can't she's gonna be limited what kind of job she can get now. And who knows how many other people in my office and offices across the country are making ridiculous offers for that. And who knows if she has an attorney that will fight for her, or any attorney at all, maybe without knowing, just accepts that and she screws herself up for the rest of her life. So being able to stop stuff like that from happening, but also educating the people in my office on like what cases actually should come to diversion, because yeah, they just want to do less work. So if I'm taking cases from them, they're gonna be happy about it in the end. Usually it's not too personal. But then I'm also on the intern committee from my office. So teaching law students who are future litigators, potentially future defense attorneys or prosecutors or judges for that matter, the right way to approach a case, what to look for, what not to look for, to read between the lines, because most cases that police bring in are bull. I mean, going off time, but 50 to 60% are usually rejected, but you need the right people in place to reject those cases. Otherwise, there are some officers where they take the police word automatically. If a police officer says this person did A, B, and C, they just believe them without reading the report and seeing if it makes sense, seeing if there are witnesses, actually digging deep into it. Like, training another generation of attorneys can be how do you say, gives me hope, because it doesn't have to be, we don't have to go back to a law and order that a lot of states and cities are going to, like it was in the 80s. Like, whether or not that's happening at the top of government circles, because that is what the pushback is. It's a reaction, just cause and reaction. But on the ground level, keeping that law and order out of an office so that you can help individuals on the ground. And that might not be big policy. It might be going against the actual policy, but it actually makes a difference.
Hayden, is anything giving you hope these days?
Well, definitely just listening to this conversation and what Josh just said, because I was a 15-year-old who was incarcerated in Rikers Island for 6 months without being able to bail out or even go see a judge. Like, 6 months in Rikers Island, all because my mom lived in North Carolina and the judge said I was a flight risk. So if I didn't have my dad, I probably would have ended up doing a couple of years in prison. So to hear and know that Josh is doing this type of work, that is definitely like, wow, thank God. Thank God for bringing you into this world so that you can enlighten other attorneys and judges. So thank you for doing that work. My bill paying job is housing. So I'm working to end homelessness as well as suicide. Just some small things. But I see hope every day when I talk to people, because people, like, I can't tell a person, oh, you should not want to die in this world, right? Because of the way this world is built, it was built to make some people not be able to live out their life. Whether it be a person born, with a chronic illness, disability, whether it be a person that ends up becoming, addicted to drugs or alcohol, a person that has a mental illness. The systems and the way they treat those people is not, compassionate or kind at all. And then to be housing insecure, food insecure, sometimes you can't get the medical care that you need. Like, those are the things that bring people to a point where they're like, I can't live another day. But the hope that I see from that group of people is that I see more of them saying, oh, I can live another day. But not only can I live another day, but I can thrive. And that comes from the support that they're starting to get more from community, because people are starting to wake up. More people are starting to wake up, and more people are starting to understand how the system impacts people, how it impacts them becoming productive and healthy and caring and good parents. Like, we're starting to know more how the system affects a person from birth to death. And so that is inspiring more people to say, I'm going to give this world one more try, right? Like, to me, that's hope. But also, the hope is that more people start to wake up and understand what Black people have been fighting in this country for 500 plus years now. When the Constitution was written, when the Declaration was written, the First and Second Amendments were written, they were written for a certain group of people. And even those people didn't really believe it, but they thought it looked good on paper. The people that really believed that shit were free Black slaves. They believed it so much that they have fought in every war, become police officers, judges, lawyers, school teacher, decades, century after century, right, in this country that never wanted them here in the first place, have ran for political office, and have kept this country together, have fought to have laws enacted so other people can migrate here and become successful citizens as well. Black people are the backbone of this country. As long as there's a Black person in this country, there will be a fight for justice and freedom. That's the hope that I see every day. Every time I see another Black person, I'm like, oh my God, there's another Black person. So to me, that means that there's going to be another fight, another day, and another victory and another win. So that is always my hope, as long as I know that there's another Black person somewhere in America. And I'm just talking about America right now, because the jump off starts here for everybody.
Can I ask a question? You really bring up a great point. This is something that I have been struggling with as a Black woman in this body, and also being very brilliant with people standing on my back. Like, even in groups of people of color, it's expected for me to speak up, to speak out, to, that's not cool, to fight, you know what I mean? And then everyone else just kind of steps over or whatever and walks right on in, which is what happened with affirmative action, right? That's what we're talking about. Is like, we fought for this thing and they opened it up for everyone, right? How do you think that we can move to the side or fight on behalf of Black people so that we can actually, I don't know if it's possible in this system, but maybe we could just think about it for a second, so that people aren't stepping over us, that we actually benefit from our policies that we're advocating for.
In this world that we're living in now, I don't think that could be possible. And the reason why I don't think it's possible is because, there's only one other group that could potentially step in and do what Black people have done in this country, and that's Indigenous people. And the reason why I say that is because we're the two native groups to this country that this system was built for, to create it to keep us oppressed. Every other immigrant that comes to this country, they can assimilate. That's why the Hispanic, the Latino community has so much power that is continuing to grow, because white people know that these people can assimilate if they want to. Like, our numbers can continue to grow as white people because these groups of people can always assimilate. We've seen it with the Irish people, we've seen it with the Italians, we've seen it with the Jewish communities. So for us to step aside is to literally say, here's my life in your hand. Go ahead, take it. I'll just let you kill me. I'll just, like Zora Neale Hurston said, you know, I don't even have to say it because, you know, we know, like, if we give people that power to kill us, they will say that we loved it and we allowed it. So for us to step aside and ask other people to pick this mantle up that we've been carrying for 500 years, it's not a thing that's going to happen, Kiyoshi. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but this is some real shit that we're talking about, right? Like, this country was built on murdering the people that were here first and enslaving them also. And then when they realized that they had killed off the majority of them, they decided to bring in these other people who were experts at farming, experts at raising children, experts at leather, experts at wood. We were experts in everything that they were not. But yet they built this country. And we just cannot put the mantle down. I'm sorry, sister. I'm sorry. And I know you're tired, because look, I lived as a Black woman for 41 years. I know the experience firsthand. I know you're tired, but baby girl, you cannot pass that mantle to anybody else but another Black woman.
I'm actually going to pass it on to a product that's going to work for me, because I am not going to keep doing this shit. I'm sorry. I am going to enjoy my life. I am not interested in kidney disease, high blood pressure, cortisol. I will find
She said they're not going to get me.
I'm going to find me a product. I already have a couple. Let's get us some products and exit. I want my dual citizenship. That's what I want. I'm going to keep my American certificate because I earned this, but I'm going to Nigeria. We're going to build us some infrastructure or something, because it's a lot of us over there. And it's a Malimba. Malimba is cold right now. I'm like, what can we do? Can we get dual citizenship in Ghana? Like, what? Everybody else got their country, their place, whatever. Let's maybe I'm looking in the wrong direction. Of like, I'm so attached to this. Sometimes I have attachment issues. I learned that in therapy, like, because of, the attachment to this place. What could I get if I was to release this place?
Right.
Actually try to build something with the diaspora and build relationship and they offering forgiveness. They offering apologies. They offering all different types of stuff. I actually want to go look and see what it is, because maybe we can figure out something different. Because I'm tired of this. I don't want to play with them anymore if they don't want to play with us. We deserve to live and be well and to be happy,
Look, all Mother Africa has to do is say, children, come home, and here is the land for you. That is an entire continent with spaces that people have never even set foot in yet. They have land for us that they can give to us and say, come back home. The Jamaicans, the Antiguans, the Dominicans, they all can leave America any day and go home, right? Us poor Black Americans that have been stuck here for 500 years, and we're fighting the good fight, but we're fighting a fight in a place that was never meant for us to be in. That's why we're so sick emotionally, psychologically, physically, because we're not supposed to be in this place. It's a beautiful country, but we're not supposed to be here. Our DNA tells us that we are not supposed to be here. So Mother Africa has to step up too and bring us home. There was a young girl from India that was murdered in Seattle in January by a police officer. She was hit by his police cruiser. He was speeding through a neighborhood and hit her as he was going through the intersection. India, the country of India, bypassed the Seattle Police Department, the governor of Seattle, and went directly to the Department of Justice and said, we want justice for our citizens. That's where Africa has to step up and say, America, we want justice for our people. Those are our people. The African continent as a whole has to stand up and demand justice for us. But before that can happen, they're going to have to stand up and demand justice for themselves. And then they can backtrack and come and get us.
Thinking about other communities, thinking about the fact that oppression manifests differently in different communities, and you talked about the difference between, you know, systems and institutions, conceptualization of the immigrant threat, right, versus the Black and Indigenous threat, right, and how they arrange their systems to account for the way that those things show up differently. Knowing that we are interconnected in the quest for liberation, what does it mean to be, for other communities to be in solidarity or accompliceship with this community?
I think that's incredibly important. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead, Josh, because I've been running my mouth, man.
Oh, no, never did. I think this coalition building, most of the groups that we're suggesting are, we all have the same enemy. It's the same oppressor that's against each of us, some more than others. But building those coalitions and solidarity and allyship I think that's the best way or quickest way towards some form of equality, whether or not it's ever going to be fully equal in a system that was never meant for us or built for us. But working with other groups, other oppressed groups or trivialized groups, I think is the best thing. I mean, during the civil rights movement, multiple groups worked together to achieve to fight for civil rights, whether that specifically for us, but a lot of other groups. You've seen it just recently. I mean, each time the police kill somebody else, like groups come together and, I don't know, the unifying force of every different type of group, ethnicity, religion, whatever, marching together in unison, calling for justice for over the murder of an innocent citizen. That's the kind of unifying force, I think, in coalition building that's needed. Unfortunately, it goes in highs and lows. So after Mike Brown, after George Floyd, we had peaks, but then now we're seeing the rollback. Whereas opposed to unity, it's disintegrating and separating. So, oh, sorry, I was looking at the question now. Yeah, I think community has to encompass multiple groups because we are only, 12% of the population. So in order, I mean, it's, taken into a numbers game, economically, we have a ton of power. We combine with some other groups, that power is tripled. It's magnified. So I think we need to work with other minor trivialized groups to achieve our goals, whether that's policy, whether it's that's economic building. We talked about segregation, investing money back within ourselves. Within those groups that are going to support us, and frankly, the ones that aren't, don't. take our money and go home.
That is a very challenging question for me. Especially knowing history and the different roles that people played in it across the racial spectrum. It's challenging because I do work with a lot of diverse facilitators I love, you know, and I've learned so much from, and they have advocated for me to be in places that I would not be otherwise be invited to. So I'm really grateful for that. So there is that, and there are times where, you know, I love the George Floyd stuff, but George Floyd been dying. George Floyd been dying for 500 years now. Every day, multiple times a day, George Floyd has died every day. That's why I was very confused. Like when George Floyd got killed, why, what made this one time? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why this one time? George Floyd is still dying, has continued to die. I guess I would need to see it. I need to see it under strenuous circumstances, not just when it's convenient and easy, but put your life on the line. You know, like I have this one time I work with a facilitator who's very dark chocolatey. She's Afro-Indigenous, and that's their identity. They have, and then I work with someone who looks more like a cliche Indigenous person. Well, my darker skinned person actually has relationships with the Indigenous community. This person just found out they were Indigenous a couple years ago. Like, you know, they don't, you know, they just found out. They haven't really delved deep into it. The client was tokenizing this person while ignoring the identity of this person. And I had to bring that to their attention, and they ended our contract. They still paid us because I wrote it in my contracts. I still want to do the work though. The work needed to be done. And so it's just, they have to be willing to sacrifice. I was willing to sacrifice on behalf of my friend because it was wrong. I didn't care about the money. I lived in abundance. And I think that people are going to need to reframe their mindset into an abundance, because that's what white fragility is, right? It's scarcity mindset. Just like, oh, they're going to take from me, we're all going to die, right? But if we act in abundance and that, oh, we're actually better. Oh, my business is going to grow bigger. Oh, we have different minds thinking. We're creating innovative solutions. Oh, my life is richer. The food tastes better. Like when there's culture, then they can see the abundance in it. You know, so I think, you know, it's going to take some work, and I'm going to have to see it because I have dealt with a lot of gatekeepers. A lot of times what they'll do is when a white woman isn't available, they'll put a person of color there, you know, a brown woman to oversee darker skinned folks. And they come with white supremacy culture because it's their one opportunity that they get to be a leader. And so they feel like they got to go harder than everybody else. And I'm like, okay, how are we preparing folks for leadership, helping them be, you know, not assuming because they're a person of color that they know what racism is and white supremacy culture is and how it lives inside of themselves. So I needed to do personal work and learn about the history of this country, and then how white supremacy culture impacts them, and then see it in action.
You two really summed it up well. I'm all for coalition building and, you know, working cross-culturally with people. My thing is that in order for this to work the way it needs to work, for us to dismantle white supremacy, is that people of other cultures, aside from Black and Indigenous people, are going to have to stop wanting to assimilate into whiteness. That's the only way it's going to work. As long as we continue to have people that come to this country, you know, first generation immigrants, and they work their tails off for the American dream, and then their kids assimilate into whiteness, but still hold on to that token POC title. Cross coalition building is a sham at that point, because you're living in the whiteness, the privilege that you're able to get because you were able to assimilate. And when when it's time to really fight, and I'm talking about when people have their backs against the wall and they're fighting from that stance, people that assimilate are not going to do that. And so that's why I said that Black people will always carry the mantle, because we were here when this country was created. When the documents were signed, we were here. We were here, of course, when slaves were freed. We were here when Reconstruction period happened and there was Black people that were senators in California that people don't always talk about how successful we were right after and during the Reconstruction period. And then when white people saw that, oh, these Black people who we just had as slaves a few years ago actually do want to work and do want to build this country up and do believe in all men are created equal. But we can't have that because we don't actually believe that. So we will destroy everything that they've built up. Reconstruction, lynching, Black Wall Street. Every time there's a major step forward for Black people in this country, white people always push back in a major way. And it's always with violence. And it's always with immigrants who have assimilated, who sometimes are always the main aggressor. So those type of behaviors have to stop in order for cross collaboration, coalition building, all of that to be really successful. Because like Josh said, during the civil rights movement, some of our main leaders were people of color, especially women of Asian descent. I'm talking about on the front lines. But if you look at today, at what's happening today, where are those descendants of those people at? You know, they're not on the front lines in the way that their grandparents and their parents were, because they've assimilated. And yes, Asian people can assimilate, you know, into whiteness in a different type of way. So the assimilation is the main issue in this country. And I can understand it. Like, who would want to be Black in this country coming here newly? Not even Africans or Caribbeans want to be Black in this country. My dad is first generation, you know, an immigrant here. I'm a first generation from his side, right? Like, I heard the way his family talked about Black people in this country. Like, nobody wants to be Black at the end of the day, but everybody wants us to fight for them. And I think that once we start taking back that power, hey, we can't do this fight for you, because every time we do this fight for you and we need you, you might be here for the first 5 minutes, but you're gone by the 9th inning. So we need to have those conversations with other communities as well. There was a piece written by a rabbi in DC a couple of years ago in the Washington Post, and it basically asked Jews, are they willing to give up their whiteness? I'm a Black Jew. So that really hit home for me, because of course I'm not assimilating, and I would hope that if I could, I wouldn't. So that article really hit home for me, because there was a time when Jews were not white people. So how can you be able to let the whiteness go? How can you let all of the privileges and advantages go of whiteness? Like, that's a hard struggle. I can only imagine how hard it is. And to want to give that power up. I mean, look at Mitch McConnell. This man is literally having many strokes on TV because he doesn't want to give up his power. That's an addiction. It's just wow.
And I'm hoping I can offer too for our viewers and the people who are going to watch this video later. We started with a community agreement around not speaking on behalf of communities that we don't belong to. I'm experiencing this conversation as not that, but as a reflection on how community has received allyship and accompliceship from other communities. That's how I'm experiencing this conversation, and I hope you do too. How history has shaken out. We have examples from the Panthers, the Rainbow Coalition of the late 60s and early 70s. We had coalition building between the Panthers, the Red Guard Party, which was an Asian American organization, the Brown Berets, the Young Lords, which was a Puerto Rican organization, and building systems of community care across communities in a way that contributed to the survival of everyone. And what I'm experiencing here is a reflection about how we've lost that and how we have failed to sustain that coalition and solidarity. Maybe because the way oppression manifests in different communities has caused a level of splintering that we just don't know how to rectify. Busy trying to save our own skins? I don't know. But I want to open up the space again. If there's anything else that's in your heart, on your mind, bubbling up, not aligned with any questions I might bring into the space, but just what's in your heart right now to just say and bring into the space for each other.
I just, I facilitate on Bacon's Rebellion. Are y'all familiar with Bacon's Rebellion?
Mm-hmm.
Where indentured servants united with stolen Africans. White indentured servants united with stolen Africans, first against the indigenous communities to try to, take them out, get them off of their land, but then against the elite 1%. And they found that as a threat to the capitalistic society. And so that's when they elevated the lower class whites, the indentured servants, to become the overseers of the enslaved folks. So they would never want to, they wouldn't allow the enslaved Africans to rise, and they're not really going to rise either. So because we actually need each other. And so what we learned is like when we're unified, like we all inherently benefit. But I think what's missing with us is just trust. We're so segregated. That's why dividing and conquer really works, because we don't have that love or that knowledge of knowing that you're going to be there for me if it really comes, because we've been hanging out for the last 5, since we were kids. You're in my neighborhood and we have a relationship. So I see that at play. And I think, at a very minimum, like providing people with education around how the divide and conquer strategy works and what we could possibly achieve if we all collectively work together. I think that might be kind of cool, something to explore.
I know Josh unmuted a little bit ago. Wanted to bring you back into the space.
I just hit the button. I was just agreeing really
Okay.
hard and I got excited. So my fault. But I agree with the divide and conquer. I mean, it's the same game plan by the same group that tries to maintain power. So you see during the civil rights movement, all these groups are coalescing and working together and having conversations, and groups or organizations are working with other organizations. And that's a danger, because when the people unite, powers fall. So what do you do if you start to see too many groups start to unite? You divide them. You start to create infighting. You start to create distrust. And then all of a sudden you have a splintering. Then you create segregated neighborhoods and segregated parts of cities so that there is no interaction. And now groups are beefing with other groups for all intents and purposes that really we should have no issue with. The same group, and this is probably overgeneralization, but the same groups is rich white male land owning straight Christian males. I think I said male twice. They've always been in power, and they do not give up power. And in order to do that, they turn us all against each other, whereas they're always enemy. I didn't mention, speaking Jewish people weren't white. I mean, that's not that long ago. No, my dad grew up in going to places where it said no N-words, no Jews, no dogs. And that was just a standard sign on doors. Like you knew you just couldn't go into those areas or those beaches or whatever. The ideas of separating groups, it's a powerful tool. Governments, it's a colonization move. It's the same script. You go into a country to oppress a people, you divide them up into separate groups, and then you make one, you elevate one above another, and then you police them, so it dehumanizes the group at the bottom. Well, unfortunately, we're always at the bottom. So each group that comes in, we get dehumanized because, like everyone said, essentially you come in as a new immigrant, who wants to be on the bottom? Nobody. So immediately you want to go after the person you don't want to be on bottom. Being next to the bottom is great. So like poor whites, I mean, look at how generally they vote. They just don't want to be on the bottom. So by voting with us, that suggests that they're on our level. You vote against us, you vote against your own. People would rather vote against their own best interests in order to not be associated with us. And deprogramming that in the mindset of masses of people, I think is something, I don't know how that happens. It's gonna be over time, but that goes back to what Kiyoshi was saying, education. Like we have to re-educate, and that's why they're fighting this war on education, prevent us from actually educating people to what their history is, what their rights are, or like voting in their own best interests, knocking doors and having conversations with people. It's crazy to think why they're voting the way they're voting when it will directly harm them. But it's simply because one side is associated with Blackness, the other isn't. And they'd rather vote for something that's going to take away their job, their health care, their rights as a human being, rather than have anything to do with Black people.
Stephanie, what was the question again?
Just anything that's in your heart to bring into the space. We're moving toward wrap up, but I also want to release control as the moderator here. If there's just something bubbling up for you.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So pretty much what Kiyoshi and Josh said, good summation of everything. Moving out here was one of the biggest life-changing moments of my life, because I come from a place where Black people have always been in some position of power, New York City, and then I lived my entire adult life in DC, where Black people have always ran every part of the city government. You know, from the mayor to the police chief, every city government agency, city council members. So coming out here was the first time that I was never in a space where I saw a Black person every day of my life, but also where I worked in places where there was not a Black person in power. And I've experienced racism in a different way here. My mom's family is from North and South Carolina, so I know about that Southern racism, but Southern racism is pretty much in your face. You know, if a white person has an issue with you, they're going to let you know. And, you know, hey, thank you, because I needed to know that, right? But coming here, I found that white people are not as transparent and upfront about the way they feel about Black people. And so in turn, they create these policies in the city, the county, and the state that make you think they're doing it for the good of the people. But there's always a twist to whatever policy they're enacting, which in turns makes it very hard for those policies to actually become true within the community. The funding.
And unlike in the South, here it completely obscures our sense of safety.
Right, right. And I've also never felt as unsafe in my life as I do out here. But also, unfortunately, my own people out here have made it hard for me to integrate into community. Like I literally have no community here because I'm not a native and I don't know the right Black person, like it's just weird. And I stay off balance a lot here. But then when I remember you're from New York, then I pick myself back up, right? Because we have a saying, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. But I stay off balance quite often because I always feel like I'm fighting two battles. One with white liberal progressives that are really racist, and the other with Black people that have experienced so much trauma that they're distrustful of other Black people that they kind of know have been living this freedom that they have not been able to live. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying it in a way that there is this insidiousness here that has smothered Black people. And they don't know that they're smothered until they go to a DC or Atlanta, Houston, or somewhere like that, right? Like there's this veil of racial history here in the Pacific Northwest. Like when I drove to Mount Hood for the first time, I cried the entire way driving because I could feel this heaviness of the natives that had walked that same path that I was driving. Like I could feel their spirits and the heaviness of what happened to them when white people came to this land. And I've never felt that anywhere else in this country other than right here. So it's a different way of being out here as a Black person for me. And I feel like I have to announce more often than I should have to that I'm a Black person that cannot be fucking played with. And I will not put up with your bullshit. Like it's almost every day that I have to like come in with my whole chest. Don't fuck with me.
Can I say something on that? I gotta say something. First of all, now you know somebody from Oregon, and I get you in. We in the Matrix. You know what happened with the machines? We in Zion, okay? We hiding out from the machines, okay? We can't just be out like that. It's interesting. I'm glad you bring this up. I don't know if you're a part of Black Portland, but my brother owns that group. So it's a lot of activities is going on. I will take you to one of the Zion parties or gatherings inside the Matrix so you can make friends. So please take my contact information. And I will say personal, local, and immediate for me, it's not that I don't know the insidiousness, it's just I'm tired. We are very tired. There's been a lot of things that we have done as Black Oregonians that we have built up. Just like you talked about the Black Wall Street, we had our mini stuff. When you go to Emmanuel Hospital, this is how insidious, this is how horrible it is. I didn't know it, and I was born here, that those at Dawson Park, is it Dawson Park? Those towers, there's two little things that are at the top of the park. That used to be a whole community, and they just left the little pillars to remind us that we took your stuff. So when you talk about equity work, when we go through an equity lens, one of the things that we look at is place, right? What happened to in those places? And there's a lot of places here in Oregon that all types of horrible things have happened that people who aren't from here don't know about, and that a lot of us are just tired. We're so tired. We have been fighting for events for all, the police could just come and shut down our music, come shut down our poetry, come shut down everything that we have, so it's not, I'll speak for me, it's not that to the point where I'm so tired that yesterday I'm walking with my friend who got cancer, and I feel like I had to speak to every Black person that I saw because of this. Because people feel like, oh, well, people in Portland, Black people, they don't speak. So I feel like I gotta say something, even though I'm exhausted. I'm here with my friend, she dying, she can't, there's nothing else left for her. but I felt like I had to do this so that narrative that we don't care, we don't like folks, so that, only certain people are allowed in our things. Like nobody who I know, and I know a lot of Portland people that I know is like that. So I welcome you. Welcome to Oregon. Welcome to Portland. I would love to connect with you and get you, in and let you know where the secret stuff is. So.
So I left Portland in 2020 once George Floyd, all of that stuff started, and I moved over to Vancouver. It's the same thing, it's just smaller, right? But so I know Miss Antoinette Edwards, right? So I like to say, okay, well, that makes up for everybody else because I got Miss Antoinette on my side.
Folks, as we move toward the end of our time together today, let me just reiterate a incredible sense of gratitude for the thoughts and reflections, for the joy and the rage and the confusion and the community building that happened in this space today. Knowing that we're moving toward the end of our time, are there any final words that anyone wants to share?
Thank you for the invitation. This is my second time getting to do work with you all because you all did some work with the Oregon Alliance to Prevent Suicide that I'm a member of. So I really appreciate your leadership, doing this equity work and bringing white people into it and just healing, because a lot of the work that you do is healing people, healing the community. You're not a physician or a nurse, but you are a healer. You all are. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you for that. We'll work on receiving that.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the invitation. This was great. I mean, thank you to Aiden and Kiyoshi because y'all are incredible. So I'm not on the West Coast, but when I do, I want to get up with y'all because, also I want to see them Black spaces because when I was in Portland the one time, it took me a long time to find some Black folks. So I was kind of curious when you said you all hiding out. I was like, y'all do a good job. I also want to say thank you to the interpreters because I've kind of been watching y'all throughout, and that's incredible. 2 hours worth of doing this? I'm sure y'all been doing it from before I got here. But y'all, UPRISE is a great organization. Thank you for the work y'all do. And anytime I can help out in any way possible, just let me know because this is amazing.
Thank you.
Josh, where are you located at?
I'm in St. Louis.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been great to watch y'all grow over time, that you're still at it. And I'm really grateful for the spaces that you created for us, both online and in person. Really grateful to Josh and Aiden. Just learning what y'all do is absolutely incredible. I don't know how I can support you. Well, I wonder. Not I don't know. I say I don't know. That means the brain has nothing to work on. But I wonder how I can support you within my agency. Because I just love it. I love it. I want people to live. I want people, I want to deal with these systems to where people want to get up and look forward to today and tomorrow, and also reforming our criminal justice system. That's something. I'm in medical. I want to go deeper into medical, but medical and legal are my two things. When my coach was asking me, where do I want my business to branch out to? Those are my top two. And then my third one is disability. I really want to get into that too. So I'm just really grateful for both of you and the work that you're doing. I'm grateful for this space. And I just, for those who are watching, just don't give up. If all of us just pick one thing to focus on, like you said, Stephanie, I'm thinking stay in your own lane, what is your lane, and do it with excellence, do it well, and touch as many people as you can. I think we can make a change. Every action has the equal and opposite reaction. So let's put this love and this justice, keep it moving.
Yes. Folks, thank you so much, so much to our panelists, to our interpreters, to our captioner. Thank you to the UPRISE team and board. Thank you to those of you that are in the space, those of you who will be watching this later. We hope that you stay well. We hope that you stay fed. We hope that you stay safe. We're going to end the recording now, and Brianna is going to take us through our raffle for the people who came to the taping today. But thank you. Have a lovely, lovely evening.